Hey, everybody. Welcome into Redacted on this Monday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And on this show, we cover the stories the mainstream media largely ignores. There's a couple of big stories that we're following for you today. Another Signal scandal. Yes, a hack of the Signal app that the Trump administration is currently using, a variation of this Signal app. We're going to talk about that on the show today.
We're also going to talk about whether or not we're going to see empty shelves, empty ports for the tariff war with China. Is that actually going to happen? Because the media is trying to scare you that it is. Should we start stockpiling toilet paper? Clayton, we don't have to. We have bidets in our house, but you can if you want to, and we have plenty of toilet paper. Also, Canada has decided that they want to invite the king to open their session of parliament as a sign of sovereignty. That's weird, right? Do you invite a foreign government to open your government session
by having the king
show that you're sovereign? I don't understand that. I think it's only a reaction to Donald Trump and the United States. Go ahead.
Don't we often invite Netanyahu to open our Congress? I can't remember. I think we
well, not at least to open it, but we know who our paymasters are. Zelensky has addressed Congress as well, but to open the session, okay. That's kind of weird.
Well, also Alberta, too. Like, Alberta is basically saying, yep, we're done. We're done with Canada. Mm-hmm. We have the signatures. We want out. We don't want to be a part of the Mark Carney government in Canada anymore. And, I mean, he's not wasting any time doubling down on censorship.
Yeah.
You know, you speak out. I mean, again, you speak out against your government. You speak out publicly. You know, you could be facing fines. You could be facing all sorts of problems in Canada, very similar to the UK, of course.
Right. Also, we're going to talk about another narrative of the climate scam has fallen. We're going to show you how how the planet is, you know, warming and cooling, growing and shrinking all the time. The media won't cover this, but we will. So we're busy today. We got a lot going on. Before we get to our first guest, we're going to talk about this war with Iran, the war with Yemen, which will eventually lead to the war with Iran if Israel has its way. We're going to talk about all of that. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at American Financing, because with everything that's happening in the economy, it feels like we are on shaky ground. You can say that again. Prices are still stuck high. Nothing is really affordable. It's no wonder so many people are still relying on high interest credit cards to cover the debt. And credit card debt is skyrocketing in the United States. But if you're a homeowner, you don't have to face this uncertainty alone. Our friends at American Financing can help you take control. They can help give you access to the equity in your home to pay down that high interest credit card debt. So you're leveraging good debt for bad debt. This is something that wealthy people know about, is you leverage your debt. You don't just hold on to assets and hoard. That's not how you build wealth. They can close a new loan in as little as 10 days and give you so much breathing room in your finances. So call them for a free consultation. They can look at what you've got and see whether or not this works for you. And again, it's just another tool to learn in your tool shed of a buffet of financial products. So call them at 866-890-8434 or head on over to americanfinancing.net/redacted. One more time, that's americanfinancing.net/redacted. Put aside an hour to learn this and see if it works for you. They are an NMLS number 182334. That's again, americanfinancing.net/redacted. And before you, this is the question on everybody's mind, right?
Okay.
Is Zendaya going to the Met Gala tonight? She is.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. So if you were worried about that, for escapism, it's happening. She's going. God. She didn't go last year. She is going. Is that what you were worried about?
No, I hadn't even thought about that. But thank you for clearing that up.
I didn't even sleep last night because of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Please. Thank you so much for that. That's great news.
All right. Now we can get to the hard stuff.
All right, let's get to, the real news of the day. Well, Israel just voted to approve a plan for the full military occupation of Gaza. Not just certain zones, but everything. Here's the report. Israeli government approves a plan for full military occupation of Gaza. An Israeli official told Haaretz that the plan is different from previous Israeli military operations because it will lead to the occupation of territory and a sustained Israeli presence in Gaza. And Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich said once this new offensive begins, it will not end until the strip is, quote, conquered. Hasn't it already been conquered, by the way? And we were told this weekend that Houthi rebels attacked Israel's main airport. Here was the moment this missile struck one of the areas in the tarmac. Here you can see it just made it through unfettered. Here are some other. This was a man sort of dancing or singing sort of inside. You can watch this as this happened.
To the
again. These are civilians. I mean, there's children there. So are the Houthis attacking a civilian airport? Looking to attack civilians? Is that where we're at? John
Thankfully,
Bosham.
there were no deaths in that attack, only injuries so far.
John Bosham posted this. He's a former U.S. Army. He posted this. He said, breaking. Somehow a missile evaded the U.S. Navy missile defense in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden and Israel's Iron Dome to hit Israel's Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. The IDF claims it's a Houthi ballistic missile from Yemen backed by Iran's government. Israel is desperate to attack Iran. All right, so let's unpack this now. Colonel Davis is joining us today here on the show, trying to make sense of all of this. Colonel, good to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So when you see this, I think he brings up a good point. And look, I'm very aware false flags work a lot. False flags are incredibly effective. He sort of seems to be saying that, how did this missile fly through the Red Sea, evade the Gulf of Aden? The U.S. Navy's missile defense system goes right through Israel's Iron Dome, and it hits a civilian airport. Do you think that this was a false flag or a legitimate Houthi attack on a civilian airport?
Well, we certainly can't really discount any of it. We don't have anywhere near enough information. But categorically, I mean, we can't put it past anyone to do a false flag if they think it's going to be in their interest to do so. There's been plenty of things that the Israeli side has said from the beginning of this, from October 7th on forward, that proved to be completely untrue if they think it's going to help them out. But it's also entirely possible that this missile did get through, because we saw in both of the attacks against Israel from Iran in 2024, especially the second one, quite a number of ballistic missiles evaded the system. It was many of the missiles were not intercepted, so it is not at all surprising this, because the Iron Dome, and we've had some experts on our channel here who were very, very versed in the operations of the Iron Dome system, the David Sling, all of those different various levels of it, and they said, look, a lot of these things can get through, especially some of the higher end ballistic missiles that Iran has, and apparently some that also the Houthis have, whether they were domestically made or given by Iran, who can say? But this idea that the Iron Dome is 99% flawless, which is what the Israelis have claimed after the second attack in 2024, is just not borne out by the physical evidence. So it is possible that this got through. But the bottom line is, whether it was a false flag or whether it actually got through, the Israeli side certainly does seem to be wanting to use it to build up momentum for a war with Iran, and there are plenty in the United States that seem eager to help them.
Well, part of my hesitance to believe this is that it takes a long time for us to push back against the IDF to get true stories. So think of the targeting of journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. It took international outrage for an investigation to happen. Now the IDF says, look, we can't send food into Gaza because these are bags of bullets. Look what we found, right? And so the information's coming at us so fast and furious, and the U.S. government accepts what the IDF says as standard, and the rest of us have to say, how do we know?
Well, like I said, that's been a problem literally since day one of this war, and you can understand, because people have this instinctive desire to want to believe that the Israeli side is the good guys and the Hamas side are all evil, et cetera, because that's what we've been taught for decades. And so if we hear a story that matches what we already believe, then it's easy to believe that, and that is being used by the Israeli side. It's a part of war. All war is deception. Everybody engages in it to one extent or another. So we need to get past the idea that anything the IDF official spokesman says is true. You need to stop taking really anybody's view for anything face value. On our deep dive show, we look at what people say, but then we compare it to what's true on the ground. And then when you look at the Gaza Strip, and you want to hear that this is collateral damage, I mean, that's laughable at face value. It's clearly a systematic effort to completely destroy and eradicate the ability to sustain life within the Strip by the Palestinian people. So that's just one of the examples, and unfortunately, there's a lot.
So that was yesterday. So let's bring people up to speed today, because Israel has struck back. They hit the Yemeni port in response to this attack on the airport, and they're saying that we're, hitting this port because that's the port that's used to transfer weapons from Iran. So Israel has struck back now. This seems to be deteriorating, although President Trump is heading to the Middle East, I think next week, right? Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates. So for anything to really deteriorate out of control might happen probably after Trump is back home safe and sound out of the Middle East. But you hear the rhetoric from Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday saying that President Trump is right, that Iran is behind all of these Houthi attacks. So all signs seem to be pointing right directly at Iran. So what do you make of this Israeli response on this Yemeni port today?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the next one in line. And of course, we've got our own whole issue and operation in the Red Sea that we routinely, hundreds of airstrikes that we've launched against the Houthis in Yemen since the 15th of March. People don't pay attention to the fact that we've also lost, at least the last count I had, 7 Predator drones since the 15th of March, 15 altogether. Of course, we lost an F-18 fighter jet off the deck when we were apparently trying to evade a missile that was coming in at our aircraft carrier. So the cost keeps packing up. Around $3 billion as of last week. I don't know what the current number is that we've spent since the 15th of March on a mission that's not even related to American national security, and that there is no viable reason to think that militarily we can accomplish that objective. So all we do is spend a lot of money, risk American lives, kill a lot of Houthi people or Yemeni people, because hundreds have been killed as so-called collateral damage in this, and it's not going to get anything accomplished. If you think that this is going to do something that's going to help either Israel or the United States, we have about a decade of experience with the Saudi Arabians to prove that's just very, very unlikely. You're not going to kill your way to success here, and all it's doing is keeping up the flames of the potential to keep blaming everything on Iran.
Now, how do you think this feels compared to wars that we were dragged into based on lies before? Because you were around when we were dragged into a war based on Afghanistan that intelligence already told us we could never win, because we had backed the Mujahideen against the Soviets. You were around when we were led into the weapons of mass destruction lies, but we didn't have Twitter at the time, or X. We didn't have a populace saying, we don't believe this, we're not following you, we're not doing this, because news media wouldn't platform them. Do you think this one feels like we have more of a power to break through the narrative this time?
And I'd like to say yes, because I want that to be true. But unfortunately, when you see who has the levers of power, when you see who has the full control of the mainstream media, which still has the levers of power, when you have all these guys like Jack Keane, Senator Fetterman was on X, it was either yesterday or today, just absolutely lobbying for a complete destruction of Iran. All kinds of people keep saying over and over, that's what we should do. And those things resonate because while there's a lot on social media, there's a lot on channels like yours right here. We're doing the same over on our channel, but we don't have the levers of power. And so I fear that even though there's a lot of increases, you correctly point out, and something I'm very encouraged about, I don't think that's going to save us between now and when there may be a decision made over whether we should start yet another absurd, foolish war that will only backfire on us. I certainly hope that that's the case, but I'm not really optimistic.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was speaking to some sources today who are saying we're probably the war that we would see with Iran that comes from the United States and Israel is not going to be the type of war that you think it's going to be. It's not going to be the hot kinetic war in the way that you think it's going to be. It'll likely be something entirely different. We're talking about the potential of nuclear war here, which I think everyone would want to avoid, tamp down these crazy expectations of a hot war. Do you see this being like something we haven't thought of, a different style of war against Iran?
Well, I worry that it's just not been thought out enough, and that there has been way too little thought of. And then what? Okay, so you bring in some B-2 bombers, you bring in some A-10s, which we have parked in the region. You bring in the long-range fighters, all that kind of stuff, and you strike a bunch of targets. And then what? All right, what if you don't take out all the centrifuges, all the places where they can do nuclear procurement, et cetera, or you take out all of the existing nuclear facilities that they have and the process stuff that they may have? Then what? Because now then, if they haven't done a nuclear weapons program up to this point, and according to Tulsi Gabbard a week or so ago, they still haven't, they dang sure will then. And so now then, what are you going to do? Because a lot of the stuff is buried so deep in the side of mountains, it's unlikely that we'll get to it. Moreover, there also has been a lot of reports I've seen in just the past 10 days that Iran has been getting lots of help from Russia in the form of S-400 air defense systems, maybe even some S-500s, if that's accurate. So they've been bolstered since they were attacked last by the Israeli side, and it is not at all out of the question that we could lose some of our fighter jets, some of our B-2 bombers, some of the aircraft that refuel in air, et cetera. So those are not safe. And now what are you going to do? Or worse, if Iran makes good on its threat that if you start attacking us, then we're going to attack American troops in the Middle East, in Iraq, in Syria, in Jordan. And I'm telling you right now that the missile systems that Iran has are systems we can't defend against many of our smaller bases. We don't have enough air defense for that kind of thing, and we will suffer casualties there. Then what do you do if you're President Trump? You can't just bomb them some more. Now then you're in a war that, by the way, hasn't been approved by Congress. It wasn't a declaration of war, but now we're in one. And then what are you going to do? You're going to send troops in there? You're just going to continue this long-range bombing? Towards what end? That's the problem here. Nobody's thinking about what comes next or even what an attainable military objective is. They just hope that a bunch of bombs stop the process.
Yeah, we could learn a lot from Lyndon Johnson's failures, right? To be a student of history on that mess. Just continue to send more people into the meat grinder.
And one of the reasons that we never got the truth about the Pulse Orlando nightclub shooting, where they said it was a homophobic motivated mass shooting, and it wasn't. It was someone who was protesting the United States droning of the Middle East and killing civilians. There's a reason we were never told that was the reason that person decided to shoot up a nightclub. We will inspire more people to attack us on our shores. So we're not safe just because of our geography, right?
Right. There's a much to that. I've had a number of folks on our show and others that I've read about that correctly say it. I'm talking about some very staunchly pro-Jewish, pro-Israeli people that are against the policies of the current Israeli government, that they say, listen, you keep going down this path, all you're doing is creating more space for people to come after us. And there's already a lot of genuinely bad anti-Semitism around the world. There has been throughout the ages. This just puts fuel under them and gives them more incentive and less restraint to take on, even if you're just worried about the Jewish people around the world who would be unfairly targeted. These policies fuel that. And then you're correct. If we think that that's going to, our shores are going to protect us indefinitely from everything, I think that that's a bad guess. And the more angry we make people unnecessarily, then the greater we create enemies that we don't ever even need to fight.
I think we have a lot of these terrorists already here inside the United States, and I think it's been well documented. All they need is just a trigger, and they're ready to attack. Colonel Davis, great to see you. Check out the deep dive with Colonel Davis on YouTube. Great to have you here. Thank you for keeping us sane right now. We're all trying to avoid a war. Let's tamp down these tempers. Let's lower. I appreciate
everything you guys are doing toward that end. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you.
Great context.
Thanks, Colonel. All right. We got more news to get to.
So what do? We get louder? We say, no, we see you. We don't buy your lies. We don't buy it from CNN. CNN sold us the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan. We're not doing this again. So
the New York Times,
keep taking to your X account, you guys. Keep saying so. Keep saying we see it this time.
Well, and you have like Marjorie Taylor Greene and other members of Congress saying this is not what I signed up for. They're saying I'm a huge Trump supporter. I support his administration. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene saying I do not support these foreign wars. You're supposed to be the president of peace. End these things now. Focus on America. We do not need to be spending billions of dollars and American soldiers' lives in the Middle East right now in a boondoggle with Iran.
Right.
So, all right, we've got more news to get to here. We're going to talk about empty shelves at empty ports. Now, this is what the LA port operator is saying is facing the United States right now, that get ready. In the next 5 to 7 weeks, he says, American shelves will be empty. American grocery stores will be empty. Is he correct? We're going to unpack what he said, and I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. Is this sort of fear-mongering from him? Is he a leftist? I mean, we'll talk about that coming up here in a second. But first,
I don't think I'm ever going to get empty chairs and empty tables now, the Les Miserables song, because you labeled your segment this way.
yeah.
So I won't break into song, but
Please don't do that. I'm gonna have someone have a seltzer water while you do that.
I will. Okay. In the meantime, I want to tell you about our friends over at Tax Network USA, because tax day has passed. But if it is still a monkey on your back, then you need an advocate like Tax Network USA, because every day the IRS is ramping up their enforcement, going after your hard-earned money. Over 5,000 new tax liens are filed daily, and tools like property seizure, bank levies, and wage garnishments. The IRS is applying pressure at levels we haven't seen in years, and increased administrative security means collections are moving fast. The good news is that there's still time to get Tax Network USA to help you. If you're self-employed or a business owner, if your books are a mess, they've got it covered. They specialize in cleaning up a financial chaos and getting you back on the right track fast. And even if you're right, the IRS doesn't have to accept it that you're right. I fought with them about, I had proof of mailing on time, and they still didn't. They're like, sorry, but we still want to penalize you, even though I mailed it on time. And that is an expensive and lengthy procedure. It's really hard to win. So make sure that you have someone on your side that knows how to win. You can call them at 800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/redacted. Right now, that's tnusa.com/redacted for a free consultation, or it's 800-958-1000.
Well, this is going to make a lot of people upset, especially liberals will be upset by this, because they see that, they're going to say that Trump screwed it all up with tariffs. He's ruined the United States of America. And of course, MAGA folks will never criticize Trump no matter what. This might get under their skin. They'll say this guy is gaslighting, and they might be right. So we're going to lay it out here, and you guys decide how you feel about this, but don't shoot the messenger. Here's Gene Soroka, the executive director of the Port of Los Angeles. And I've watched a lot of his interviews, and he does not seem to be a fan of Trump. Okay. Just putting that out there. Maybe he is, but he doesn't seem to be, because he's all over CNN blasting the tariffs and how bad this is going to be for the United States of America. And maybe he's right. I'll leave it up to you. So again, take it with a grain of salt. But anyway, he was just interviewed by Bloomberg News last week, I think either Friday or Saturday. And he goes into detail about how America could face a massive supply chain disruption. We're talking empty shelves, COVID-19 level retail shock with nothing on the store shelves. And he says this has already been set into motion. Watch.
Just describe for us, let's take a beat, really frame it for us, how much volume has just dropped off in the last few weeks?
Yeah, about a third of the import volume, which means give or take about 50,000 20-foot equivalent units gone off the arrivals coming in next week.
So from next week is when you expect to see this really hit?
That's correct, and that matches up. The announcement's back on April 2nd, then on April 8th, a little bit of a change on everybody, ex-China, Mexico, Canada, and those arrivals are coming at us this weekend.
We'll, of course, dedicate time to your port, but I'm just wondering how you're anticipating this rolls and ripples through the economy from here, how it hits trucking, when this turns up on the shelf. What's the distance, the time from when you see a drop-off in volume and when we, as consumers, see the shortages?
Right, so CEOs are telling me, hit the pause button, right? I'm not going to import anymore at these kind of prices. Let's wait and see. I don't know if it's going to be 2 hours, 2 days, or 2 weeks till I get some clarity. Then hiring off the table for right now. Capital investment, pause. And the retailers are telling me that realistically, with even the 10%, I'm going to have to pass it on to the consumers.
So. All right. So he's pointing out here, and a lot of people in the chat room saying, no, this guy is a union hack. He's a fearmonger. He's a leftist union hack. Others are saying in the chat room right now, saying, there's already salt is not on the shelves. So I don't know. You guys tell me what you think about it. But anyway, he's pointing out here that the tariff announcement came back on April 2nd. This caused a cascading effect. There's no stopping this now. He says it's already baked in and can't be avoided because you're having like 3 months of order time. He details how these orders, go back 3 months. Predates that. So there's enormous lag time between these orders. And then out there saying we're not ordering anything. There's going to be a huge gap of where we don't have anything on store shelves. So he says 5 to 7 weeks. So guys, let's mark the calendar, okay? So today is what? Today is May 5th.
Yep.
Cinco de Mayo. He did this interview on May 3rd. 6 weeks from now is June 14th. So we'll see if he's correct, okay? We'll check back. We'll mark it on our calendars. And maybe he's right. 6 weeks from now. So he says 5 to 7. So 6 weeks from now, we'll see. Are American store shelves going to be barren? Mm-hmm. We will see. We'll check back. Maybe he's right, or maybe he's full of it.
And I wonder if most of you feel like us, like any a-hole is getting on the news, predicting stuff because we are in an uncharted territory. So it feels like you don't know exactly who to believe. But yeah, it's a good thing to, let's see where we get, right?
Yeah.
Let's mark the calendar.
Let's mark the calendar.
Yeah.
Well, we dodged a bullet this morning, didn't we? The House of Representatives was set to vote on H.R. 867. House Bill H.R. 867. The bill would have made it a felony for Americans with up to 20 years in prison for Americans to support a boycott of Israel. Yes, $1 million in fines and 20 years in prison if you participate in a boycott of Israel. It was introduced by this guy, Representative Mike Lawler, who, as the APEC tracker likes to point out, has received almost, upwards of almost $700,000 from the pro-Israel lobby. Okay, you can draw your own conclusions if you like.
Anti-boycott laws have not held up in court. But again, dozens of states still have them on their books. It is not a federal law. It has failed in court repeatedly. But why, ask yourself, do U.S. lawmakers continue to try to make it illegal for you to boycott one foreign nation?
Because here's the thing. I think these guys can fundraise off of this. They can get more money. Like he's going to probably get more money from APEC. He'll probably get more money from fundraising.
Even though over 3/4 of Americans do not support a ban on boycotting anything. They want to be able to boycott whatever they want.
That's America. We can boycott whatever the hell we want.
Yeah. And is it only if I'm public about it, if I say I'm boycotting, or if I just do it privately, like I don't go to Starbucks again and I do that privately and they find out?
Right.
Like,
Can you get arrested for not going to Starbucks?
Yeah. I'm your private boycotter.
You used to go every day. You're not going now.
Dancer
so that we feel like that's a boycott.
Right.
Like,
that's funny.
Do I have a legal obligation to buy a menorah around Hanukkah now? I mean, if I don't, am I boycotting Israel? Like,
right.
These are questions I want to know.
Great questions.
Yeah.
So this bill has been pulled. So we dodged a bullet. It's been pulled from a vote after severe backlash. I'm surprised it took this much. I mean, my God, really? It was the dumbest thing ever. Charlie Kirk slammed the bill. He said, tomorrow the House will vote on H.R. 867, a bill that will criminalize private boycotts of Israel, fines up to $1 million, prison time for 20 years. Bills like this only create more anti-Semitism and play into growing narratives that Israel is running the U.S. government. In America, you are allowed to hold differing views. You are allowed to disagree and protest. We've allowed far too many people who hate America to move here from abroad, but the right to free speech is the birthright of all Americans. This bill should not pass. Any Republican that votes for this bill would expose themselves. We will be watching very closely. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, Steve Bannon all spoke out big time on this bill. Here was MTG this morning on Steve's show. Watch.
Over the weekend, talk about the House. There was this bill, and you're a Bible believing Christian, correct?
100%, from the first page to the last.
And you've been a supporter of Israel. This weekend, talk to me about this bill that some of the biggest supporters of Israel, Gates, Charlie Kirk, Steve Bannon, and parts of the Bannon operation, the War Room operation, MTG, were adamantly opposed to coming out of the House.
We're defending freedom. This isn't anti-Semitism that we're not pushing that. We don't promote it. We don't want to have anything to do with it. We don't want hate for any people, for their identity, race, religion, whatever. Here's the situation. This bill is promoting anti-Semitism in America, Steve, and I'll tell you why. Because when Americans see another country, any country, and their interests constantly being pushed and promoted here in Washington, D.C., before the American people's interest and the things they voted for are being voted on the House floor, that is driving anti-Semitism.
So it's been pulled. So good. We need to be more vocal in situations like this.
Right.
Well, another Signal scandal just hit the Trump administration. WikiLeaks just confirmed that the Israeli company behind the modified Signal app used by the Trump administration has been hacked. WikiLeaks, citing a report from 404 Media, says Telemessage's back-end panel was accessed using login credentials found in intercepted data. And the hacker exposed archived messages and contact info for U.S. officials. What? Why the hell is the Trump administration using an Israeli modified Signal app to communicate?
Yeah, that's weird.
Why would they be using any foreign government built app? I don't care if it's Iceland who built the app or China or Israel or Canada. Shouldn't the most sensitive communications in the United States be fully controlled by the United States end to end? But no, here's the 404 Media report. Let me pull it up here. A hacker has breached and stolen customer data from Telemessage, an obscure Israeli company that sells modified versions of Signal and other messaging apps to the U.S. government to archive messages, 404 Media has learned. The data stolen by the hacker contains the contents of some direct messages and group chats sent by its Signal clone, as well as modified versions of WhatsApp, Telegram, and WeChat. Telemessage was recently the center of a wave of media coverage after Mike Waltz accidentally revealed he used the tool in a cabinet meeting with President Trump. The hack shows that an app gathering messages of the highest-ranking officials in the government. Waltz's chats on the app include recipients that appear to be Rubio, Tulsi Gabbard, J.D. Vance, contain serious vulnerabilities that allowed a hacker to trivially access the archived chats of some people who use the same tool. The hacker has not obtained the messages of cabinet members Waltz and the people he spoke to, but the hack shows that the archived chat logs are not end-to-end encrypted between the modified version of the messaging app and the ultimate archive destination controlled by the Telemessage customer. Again, why are we using an encryption app modified by a foreign government? I'll let you decide.
They should have used direct messages in TikTok. If they were going to do that.
Snapchat?
Right. Okay. Given we're okay now with foreign governments. I mean, the whole bill of goods they sold us about taking TikTok off the app was that it was foreign controlled. But then our most secure government communication, this is fine.
Yeah.
A new study shows that the Antarctic ice sheet has experienced a mass gain period over the last 3 years. So in other words, Antarctica is not melting, as Al Gore would have us believe. Since at least 2021, it has been growing. This is news only to people who believed climate alarmism that said that the world's glaciers would just keep melting until there was none. And that was idiotic. And again, Al Gore did say things like that. The media would have us believe that the Earth does not actually heat and cool in cycles, but there's one Goldilocks way to be, and we need to just push a pause on that, and that any variation is doom. So researchers at Tongji University found that Antarctica has lost 142 gigatons of ice per year since 2011, but 10 years later, starting in 2021, that trend has begun to flip, and it has since 2021 grown by 108 gigatons of ice per year. That is only news to people who believed the media narrative. Historians and real scientists have always known that glaciers shrink and grow. They have always known oceans heat and cool. The U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration knows this too. Here is their own calculation of the Atlantic temperatures called the Atlantic Multi-Decadal Oscillation. It's a series of changes in ocean temperatures that go on 20 to 40 year cycles between about 1 degree Celsius hotter and cooler. They admit that this 1 degree shift has been occurring on their own website for millennia. millennia. It is not human caused. It is not brand new. This has always been happening. Here is their calculation of sea temperature for at least the last 65 years, showing that the ocean was in a warming phase from the 20s to the 60s, a cold phase from the 70s to the 90s, changed back to a warming phase in the 90s. They do expect another cooling phase of the ocean to begin in the next 5 years. So this ice gain should surprise nobody except the media, which will not, of course, report on this. The media would like you to believe all the ice is going to melt, all the polar bears are going to drown, because the polar bear is like their symbol of pathetic climate change. But the polar bears, last year, my teacher's 6th grade daughter told the class that the polar bears are going extinct. That is also false. In recent counts of 19 subpopulations, 2 increased, 4 decreased, 5 were stable, 8 were not counted, and most of the polar bears that were lost were hunted by humans. So yes, it is human-caused loss of population by hunting them, not because of climate change. The media won't report that either, that the polar bear population is in fact robust right now. So the media and their alarmists should all eat dirt over all of this, but they won't. They won't report it.
All right.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, of course they won't report it. It was like the Great Barrier Reef story like a few years ago. It was silence, crickets on that. Remember?
We did report that the Great Barrier Reef has rebounded. Yes. My nephew in the 6th grade was assigned a paper about the Great Barrier Reef. The teacher wanted him to be alarmist. He produced the paper that showed that the Great Barrier Reef is actually rebounded.
And expanded.
She didn't know what to do with that. Yeah.
She's like, hey,
she's like, I guess that's true, but
guess Greta Thunberg.
That's not the paper I wanted, but okay.
Teacher must have been Greta Thunberg.
Yeah.
All right, we got more news to get to. We're going to talk about Canada in just a second here, and why Canada wants the king. Wants the king. Remind everyone that Canada is under the thumb, of course, of the United Kingdom. What about Alberta? Are they going to secede from Canada? There's a lot going on in the new Carney regime, censorship, locking down on your right to free speech in Canada. And our friend David Creighton has been following all of that. We're going to get to him in just a second. Plus, we're going to talk about, you saw that video, that crazy video of that white woman going viral for yelling the N-word, right? But then why are all these influencers around that story now saying they can't handle it? Is this another sort of racist false flag story? We're going to talk about that in just a second. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Lear Capital, because gold right now, I mean, holy smokes, while the markets are giving us whiplash, have you seen the price of gold? I mean, looking at our prices of gold in our account right now, I'm thrilled about it because it's just rising. It's not just rising, it is soaring right now. In just 12 months, gold has surged more than $3,200 an ounce. It's gone up to over $3,200 an ounce. And now Goldman Sachs, the exact same experts who predicted that rise, we told you about it about a year and a half ago, they're now saying that gold could reach $4,500 an ounce or more in the next year. So the very same that predicted over $3,200, now saying over $4,500 an ounce. What is behind this historic move? Well, global currencies are failing. I mean, we've been talking about the decline of the U.S. dollar for years here on this show. I don't know that Trump can save the U.S. dollar. Maybe the way that you save the U.S. dollar is you roll it into stable coins through crypto. Maybe that's the way. But I don't know. $36 trillion in debt right now. This is why people are pouring into precious metals, because they have lasted for 5,000 years. Global currencies are falling. Big money is in a panic right now. That's why big banks and billionaires are buying gold right now in record amounts. And as long as the dollar keeps falling in value, they'll keep buying, and gold should hit that mark, according to Goldman Sachs. Anyway, our friends right now at Lear Capital, America's #1 gold company, can help you start investing in gold right now. Just call them 1-800-613-3557. Or just go to LearRedacted.com. Get on the phone with them. They're an American company. I think it's best just have a phone call with people, because you can just lay out your situation. Maybe you've got a few $1,000s in savings in U.S. dollars you want to convert over to gold or silver. They'll walk you through that process. Maybe you have an old IRA that's sitting around, an old 401k from an old job, and it's just sitting there collecting dust. With the stock market, you can actually roll that over to a self-directed account that allows you to invest in precious metals, real estate, whatever you want. They'll help you do that. They take care of all of that. They're fantastic. Anyway, 3557 to get your free gold guide right now, or go to learredacted.com.
Well, Canada wants to lean into their British roots, obviously, to reject any American alignment. It's very obvious. Newly re-elected Prime Minister Mark Carney has invited the King of England to open the next session of Parliament in order to reestablish sovereignty. I don't get how this works, but he said it. Watch this clip, and I apologize. The audio is bad, but it's
the
only 20
privilege of
seconds.
welcoming His Majesty King Charles III, who will deliver Canada's speech from the throne on May 27th. Her Majesty the Queen will join this visit. To be clear, I made the request of His Majesty, and he has accepted. He will open Parliament with the speech from the throne, and that is it clearly underscores the sovereignty of our country.
What? How can you underscore the sovereignty with a foreign leader opening your own session of government? Canada is a commonwealth, but I don't get it. So David Creighton joins us to discuss, because he speaks liberal idiot, and so he can tell us what this is supposed to mean. He's a writer at the Post Millennial and host of Creighton's Right. So what do you make of this?
Oh, I think you're muted, David.
I don't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Yep, gotcha.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, one more time. Translate liberal idiot for us, please.
Yeah. Yes, this couldn't come at a more contentious time. Of course, we just had a federal election that the Liberals won, barely won. The country is divided. We have not had a foreign monarch. And of course, we are a member of the Commonwealth. The king is technically the Canadian head of state, but usually it's the governor general, who is a Canadian, who reads the speech from the throne. We have not had the monarch deliver the speech from the throne since 1977, when Queen Elizabeth II came to Canada to read the speech from the throne. Interestingly enough, Pierre Elliott Trudeau was prime minister at that time. So what is Mark Carney up to here? Why is he inviting his good friend Charles III? And they are very good friends. Mark Carney's brother is the chief operating officer of Prince William's estate. So when he went over to meet King Charles shortly after he was anointed as Canada's prime minister a couple of months back, the two of them, of course, already knew each other. They were very good friends. They've all got the same acquaintances. And Charles is also an ardent globalist, just like Mark Carney. He's also an environmental extremist. If you look at his statements over the years, he's sold out long ago to the green energy concept. So Mark Carney is obviously, once again, play acting here. He's meeting with Donald Trump tomorrow in Washington. And of course, the two of them are talking like they're old buddies. And Donald Trump, of course, interfered in the Canadian election, and I don't tire of saying this, 3 times, including on election day, to ensure his good friend Mark Carney was elected. Now, we can debate endlessly about why Mark Carney is so friendly with Donald Trump and why Donald Trump wanted Mark Carney elected, which he clearly did. But Mark Carney is continuing to play this game of, on Monday, I love Donald Trump, and we're close to the United States. On Tuesday, I don't really care for Donald Trump, and we're going back to our British roots. Of course, Canada used to be very, very tied to Great Britain. We haven't been since the 1950s. We're still a member of the Commonwealth, but we have been in the United States orbit since the United States essentially replaced Great Britain as the world superpower, at least the non-communist one at that time. So Canada has been allied very closely to the United States post-Second World War, and to somehow reach back to our alliance with the Europeans and Britain as being the mother country is not just archaic, it's arcane, and it's absolutely ludicrous. But this is the game Mark Carney continues to play. He is on Donald Trump's side, but he's not on Donald Trump's side. We're with the Americans, but we're not really with the Americans. We're somehow trying to create this relationship, which is, I would say, virtually impossible to replicate again in 2025.
What do you think about some of his statements since the election he's made on censorship and a whole host of issues? Has a lot of Canadians really up in arms. And of course, Alberta now moving towards separation from Canada. Thousands of Albertans have taken to the streets holding rallies, signing petitions to separate from Canada. First of all, do you think that that's going to happen? Will Alberta actually separate from Canada? And what do you make of these sort of like new censorship regime around social media and other things? I mean, it seems like a playbook right out of the United Kingdom.
Well, to address your first question about Alberta, I would have said it was the impossible dream at one time, because there are waves of separatist sentiment in Alberta, especially, and throughout Western Canada, but very specifically in Alberta. And I can remember many instances of this. However, this is more than just a wave of sentiment. And I was speaking just the other day, and I interviewed Alberta Prosperity Project Council, Jeff Rath, who inform me exactly how many names they have on this petition to get the ball rolling. And Canada is, I think, the only democracy that has codified its ability, the provincial ability to separate. All it takes is 50 plus 1, and a province can separate. Now, where are the numbers right now? Well, and these numbers are about a month out of date. This is pre-Carney winning this election. The hardcore support's about 25%. The soft support is hovering about 15%. So that means about 40% of Albertans are either very supportive of separation, of Alberta independence, or somewhat supportive. Now, will those numbers go past the magic 50 plus 1 over the next few months? Very possibly, if Mark Carney continues to enforce a very draconian system that he did while chief economic advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. So it's entirely possible. If net zero continues, if Alberta is told it can only produce so much oil and cannot sell oil, if Mark Carney tries to assume control over Alberta's resources, meaning its oil and gas, which is, of course, completely unconstitutional. But Mark Carney alluded to using emergency powers to do this. So is it something Mark Carney will try to do? Very definitely. If he tries to do it, will Alberta separate? Well, the increase of support will definitely be there. And I also say it's not just Alberta that's going to be upset. And it's not just about oil and gas for Alberta. Because as you say, Mark Carney is talking ominously about a one-party state. If you listen to his first news conference as Prime Minister on Saturday, he talks about we all need to wear the same jersey, the Team Canada jersey. There can be no real opposition. We have to be completely unified. A lot of people miss that when he talked, because he was talking about some conservative buzzword programs. He talked about, let's make Canada more affordable. Okay, sounds good. Well, so did Joseph Stalin make Russia more affordable for some people. He talked about making Canada more secure. Well, once again, dictatorships do that all the time. He talked about safety. Well, there's no more safe place for you than a prison cell. And I would say Mark Carney has that in mind. But when he starts talking about everybody's got to wear the same jersey, that to me sounds like a one-party state. And yes, you're right. He's also gone back to this Online Harms Act talk, which Justin Trudeau, of course, was pushing madly towards the end of his regime, which, of course, was legislation that would have actually made it a $100,000 fine for hate speech or life imprisonment for violating this act, this crazy, ludicrous act. And there was actually, as you know, as you both know, Natalie and Clayton, there was a hate crimes provision in this, a thought crimes provision in this law that would have enabled the police to lock people up in house arrest because somebody down the street thought they might say something hateful, believing it was in their minds. It's so Orwellian. But of course, the whole election campaign under Mark Carney was Orwellian with people with their elbows up it looked like something out of the movie 1984, where they had those 2-minute hate sessions.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I sort of played out in my head, and I wonder how many people fear this, is the Kosovo situation, where Alberta considers itself sovereign, but the Canadian government does not. And then we have a military conflict. We have a situation where foreign nations cannot recognize the sovereignty of those people. You know, could we have something like that in North America?
Well, of course you could under Mark Carney, because even though the legislation says any province can separate from Canada as long as it's 50% plus one. And I believe we're probably the only country that has that. But there was a contingent. I was talking about Jeffrey Rath and the Alberta Prosperity Project. They went down to Washington to talk to some major congressional leaders. And they were told that the United States, and I don't know on whose authority, because it's a little murky to me exactly who these players were. But Jeffrey tells me they were assured the United States would recognize an independent Alberta, not necessarily in the sense that it would become the 51st state, but that it could be an independent nation, perhaps with a view in the future of becoming the 51st state. So would Mark Carney actually violate legislation in Canada that says a province can separate? I believe he would, because I believe he's also got his eyes on Alberta's natural resources, which is not just something that would violate legislation in the House of Commons. That would violate the Constitution of Canada. But I think Mark Carney's capable of that, because this is a completely amoral globalist who pretends to be something he's not, which is a democratic leader.
Yeah. All right, David Creighton, thank you so much for this context, because, the rest of us don't understand it. It feels like Canada's playing both sides of the popularity game, and that doesn't make them look very strong after this election that was meant to do just that. So follow David on Creighton's Right as well. Or is it David's Right or Creighton's Right? I'm sorry.
It's Creighton's Right, and the show is Stand on Guard every day at 10 o'clock. You know, I want to say, Natalie, if we look ridiculous, we are ridiculous under Mark Carney, because he is playing a game here. It's a role-playing game. He's been doing that since he first burst on the scene in January, and I don't know where it's going. But interesting, he's talking to Donald Trump this week. We'll see what the results of that are going to be. But as I've said, the two of them are old friends. So expect this to be a cordial meeting, far more than Donald Trump ever had with Justin Trudeau.
Okay.
Yeah, we won't hear any governor talk, I'm sure, this time around. David, great to see you. Elbows up.
Yep.
See you, David.
Thanks.
Have you seen him doing the dance?
Natalie.
Oh, yeah.
Carney doing the dance. Oh, my God.
It's super cool.
It's creepiest thing.
It's the new pop music.
No, it's anything but that. All right. Hey, we've got more news to get to. We're going to talk about...
we're going to talk about whether or not this new viral video of a white lady using the N-word is some kind of false flag. Are we being baited for some kind of racial division a la George Floyd? Is this happening all over again, or is this real? What are we to take from this? Because the argument online is clearly stupid. Right? Oh, this is a hate crime. Oh, you can't say this. Let's go beyond this racial rhetoric and see what's actually happening and who it serves to divide us along race lines. Before we do that, though.
Yeah. What does the future hold for business? Well, ask 9 experts and you'll get 10 answers. Is it bull market, bear market? Is tariffs going to kill the United States? Are tariffs going to kill China? Everyone has an idea about this. Inflation up or down. Can someone please invent a crystal ball? Until then, though, over 41,000 businesses have future-proofed their business using NetSuite, the #1 cloud ERP, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, all into one fluid platform. Because that means when you can close the books in days, not weeks. You're spending less time looking backwards and more time on what matters next. With one unified business management suite, there's one source of truth giving you the visibility and control you need to make quick decisions. So, whether your company's earning millions or even hundreds of millions, NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and seize your biggest opportunities. Speaking of opportunity, you can download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning. Just go to netsuite.com/redacted. The guide is free and it gets you set up and kind of learning all about NetSuite. Just go to, again, netsuite.com/redacted, netsuite.com/redacted. And again, I just want to make sure I got all of that. Yes, indeed we did. netsuite.com/redacted. Sometimes we get get a disclaimer in there. You got to make sure you nail it.
Yep.
So anyway, I nailed it.
We're on the up and up. Our sponsors are who our sponsors are. We're not controlled by anybody, and they never tell us what to say and what not to say. All right, let's wade into some uncomfortable waters, shall we? A video of a white lady went viral this week calling a child, a black child, the N-word, and it is race relations at its worst. Here is only a part, I'm going to stop it, of the inflammatory video.
Did you call him the child? Did you call the child the word? It is my own business. You call him a Okay, why don't you have the balls to say it right now again? Okay.
Okay, so it goes on in this vein. We don't need to show it to you. You probably have already seen bits and pieces and seen the arguments. The most extreme liberals are saying, we told you this is Trump's America. This is a hate crime. She needs to be arrested. The most extreme conservatives are supporting this woman with a GoFundMe and saying we need to come to her legal defense because white people need to stick together. The rest of us need to take a pause and say, what is this really about? Who benefits when we are divided by racial lines? Does this smell of a Jussie Smollett incident? Well, Autry Pruitt is a political consultant. He joins us today. Thank you for joining us. And of course, none of us want to hear this kind of language, but black conservatives who supported Trump on the premise that they are maybe not a fragile population, they can take personal responsibility. Now they're saying, oh no, this is too far. This is the worst. We did not vote for this. So can we blame this on the Trump administration? And what are the main themes of race that you think are playing out here online?
You can't blame this. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be on board with you. You can't blame this on the Trump administration. That's absolutely crazy. We live in a world of crazy people. So no matter who's in office, are we going to take a crazy incident and say, oh, that's the Trump administration, or vice versa? Oh, that's the representative of the Biden administration. That's like saying when somebody acted out of line in the Biden administration, oh, that's indicative of all Democrats. We've got to be reasonable. What's more important to understand is that this is a moral failing on three parts. And it has nothing to do with race. It has to do with the cultural, civic rot and lack of love and, I hope I don't offend anybody here, the lack of Christ, Jesus in our lives, the lack of a higher power in our lives. There's a moral failing on the part of the camera guy. The camera guy, you mean to tell me you see a woman yelling at a child, and rather than stepping up saying, ma'am, hold up, what can I do? What's going on? Let me step in. You calm down. I'll take the boy with me. You have a moral failing there. Instead, his instinct is to grab the camera and throw it up on social media so he can become famous too. Then you have a moral failing on the part. Where are the parents of this black child? Where are the parents? Are they anywhere to be found? Are they wandering around? Are they on the phone? Are they playing TikTok, flipping through Instagram? What are they doing? And then obviously you have the moral failing of the woman, just yelling at the child rather than to lower herself to the level of the child. I have children, so I know how to do this, right? You lower yourself to the level of the child and you say, hey, young man, what's going on? If that's what indeed happened, why'd you take that? We don't do that. Is there something I can help you with? Where's mommy and where's daddy? All three levels of failure. It represents cultural rot. It has nothing to do with Trump. It has nothing to do with racism. It has to do with the fact that the tattoo hand lady, the camera guy who has some kind of background himself, right? And the parents of the child all have failed as adults. And who suffered? The woman's kid holding and the black kid suffered. And now the rest of the society.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think you hit the nail on the head because I don't jump right to the racist thing on all of this. I see similarities to the the security camera footage of a guy just walking up to a serviceman who's working and hits him in the back of the head with a baseball bat, and he collapses on the ground. To the woman who's twerking in a parking lot outside of an abortion clinic, saying that she just got her 40th abortion and she's excited about it and she's dancing. Like, these are the things that I think represent a larger cultural rot right now throughout the United States. I keep lump them all into one category, but when I saw this, my alarm bells went off. I said to Natalie, I said, it smells like a sort of a Jussie Smollett moment. Why is there this like weird social media outreach right now and kind of pushing this story in a big, big way? Did you, when you first saw it, did you have kind of a reaction like that?
Yeah, my first reaction was very similar. Not a Jussie Smollett moment, but my first thing was this planned? Was this staged? That was my first thought. And then as it's gone on, I said, well, even if it wasn't staged, what a representation of cultural rot. And then as I begin to read some of the people from the left coming in and saying, well, this represents Trump's America, I wanted to say, well, if it's going to represent anybody's America, it's your cultural rot America, because you've driven out parents out of the school, you've driven out God, you've driven out any type of authority figure, and you said, oh, it's my truth, my life, I do what I want to do when I want to do it. Well, guess what? Now, this is what you have. Parents don't give a crap about their kids. They're letting them in the parking lot. You got parents screaming at kids stealing, people throwing up cameras. This is what the Democrats wanted. A social media, civic, rot, do what you want to do, secular, humanistic society. Well, you paid for what you got under President Obama and President Biden.
Yeah,
So
I
don't
noticed
blame
that
Trump,
as
blame
well.
yourself.
I have 3 kids. I go to playgrounds as well. And it's this ethos of everyone out for themselves, even at the playground. So, for instance, you and I both know that the person going down the slide has the right of way, and the child climbing up needs to be told, wait until someone comes down, right? And so a lot of times I'll say, this is slide etiquette to another person's child. Wait until those kids come down, and so you don't get kicked in the face. And other parents look at me like, "How dare you talk to my child? You don't talk. We don't. We have no communal. And the
Parenting
playground
anymore.
is a petri dish for that. Is that we are not a community? That's what they want, right?
That is exactly it. That is exactly it. It used to be, and I'm not that old, I was born in 1979. It used to be, if you were a child out on the playground, any adult could come up and say, hey, what are you doing, young man? Slow down, slow your roll, calm down. Where are your parents? And you don't want your parents to get called by a random other parent saying you're acting out of line, right? This, like I said, is a representation of cultural rot. And I really hate to crap on the people at the Washington Post, CNN, and the left, but the cultural rot came from you. It didn't come from us. I'm not saying conservatives, we don't have issues. I'm not saying, obviously we do, from the extreme right. But if you really want an example of secular humanistic society, it's me, because that's what Democrats have been about. No God, no church, no moral authority. Don't tell us what to do. Don't just have anything to do with me. If you want an example of it, this is how it plays out, both on the right and on the left. And so this is what you wanted. So welcome to the Democrat policies in America.
Now, I want to ask you, sorry, my 8-year-old came home the other day and said that a black child in her school was using that word. Mm-hmm. And he said, I can use it and you can't. And she said, what does he mean? And maybe I'll just take your reaction. And I said, well, there are words that you can use about other people's race that tell them that you don't respect their race. And there are words for every skin color that other people don't want you to say. And so that's why we don't say that word. And it's a matter of respect that we just don't say it because other people don't want to hear that. And so it's not about which group is the most subjective, which color had it worse. It's showing respect. So what do you think of that response?
Well, I think it's a great response. I have a problem with this. First of all, if you are under the age of, say, 14, 15, 16, why are you using this word? Why is someone who's 8 in a home, in an environment where they just can sprout up the F word, the N word, an S word, the C word for women? Why? I can't even remember. I remember I am a hip hop fan. I've listened to hip hop from a very early age. But when I was younger, you didn't, 8-year-olds weren't walking around using the N word all the time. If you heard an 8-year-old, you'd be like, whoa, we don't say that. That's not for you. So number one, that's my second problem. And secondly, you can't really talk to children about this. There's something called in-group and out-group dynamics, right? On a football team, football players get together, they have a robust, they smack each other on the butt. Well, you come from the audience to smack a football player on the butt. People are gonna be like, what the heck's wrong with you? It's in-group and out-group dynamics. Children can't understand that. So if you get to adults using the word, I have some different thoughts about that. But with regards to children, why? And I think you handle the situation. I think you handle the situation perfectly. But my question is, what, again, cultural rot. Your kids can say anything, do anything, go any place. Men are women, women are men. There's no accountability. What do you expect?
Right.
Yeah. Blue Mountain Coffee in our chat says, Autry has nailed the situation. You got it right. Tam Growl says, yet, Tam in our chat says, yet they can call white conservatives Nazis. We should make a big deal about that, too.
The conversation went to not to call Italians, what not to call white people.
I actually think this is a great point. If you're going to talk about hurtful speech and hurtful language that's defined to a group, the only other N-word equivalent is the other N-word, which is Nazi. Because it used to be, if you got called that kind of word, it still is. If someone called you a Nazi, the reason why there's such visceral reaction is because you could get canceled. You could get canceled if someone called you a Nazi. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying its historical significance in America is quite the same, but it's damn near close. And I actually think you have a great point. Stop calling each other Nazis. Stop calling each other N-word. Why don't we try to call each other Americans? Can we start there? Can we just start there?
That's an idea. And create a sense of community again. We need community more than ever at this point.
That's right.
Get back. I love what you said about the family. It needs to start at home. I saw a meme yesterday, Autry, of saying like, what did it mean to be rebellious in the 1970s? And it showed a bunch of punk rockers with like purple spiky hair and like armbands with spikes on it. Those were the rebels. And it says in 2025, and it showed a family. I mean, really. And it was like a nice glamour shot family in a field holding their kids for like a holiday picture. And they're like, oh, I get it. Yeah, that's rebellious these days.
Right. Well, thank you for this excellent context. We did not descend into racial lines. We instead talked about us as a community. What a novel concept. So, for anyone who's running their mouth on X is this or that extremes. So cooler heads prevailed.
Autry, great to have
you on Redacted.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back. Great to see you. Thank you so much.
Glad to be here. Thank you so much.
All right.
Great discussion. And a lot of people, people said, man, he nailed it.
Yeah.
Autry nailed it. Right. You know, you think you have an understanding of it, and then someone like Autry comes on and hits you. It's
right.
All right. You're like,
let's stop the racial division and talk about it as like, what would you do on this playground as an upstanding person who wants the best for all children?
Yeah.
You feel so bad for the kids sitting there as the adults are exuding these platitudes, so immature.
Well, hey, I just want to thank all of you for subscribing to the show. It's free to subscribe, or you follow or subscribe. I don't know what they call it on Rumble, on X, on YouTube. When you follow, it's totally free. But thank you guys. I just want to thank you because we've seen a massive surge in subscribers recently, and I want to thank you for that. I saw someone post yesterday or last night said, YouTube just unsubscribed me. And I didn't do that. And I said, yeah, that's what YouTube does. YouTube is not like a fan of our show. They always try to push CNN down your throat. So it's so funny. You'll see what videos get suggested next to our videos. It's always like a mainstream media source because they're like, oh, you watched a little Redacted? Here, you need some CNN to cleanse your palate, I guess. So
let's rebuild that narrative that Redacted just broke down. We have things to tell you. Climate change.
If anyway you were unsubscribed, please just resubscribe. And we're live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So just wanted to say that.
All right. Subscribe to the newsletter. Recall that you can find that at redacted.inc. Just hit subscribe to the newsletter. It's totally free, and it will link you to original source material for the things that we are going to talk about in the show, plus funner things as well. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. But again, my intention when we write this every day is that it serves as like a study guide for the things that we're going to talk about so that we don't have to repeat ourselves and you don't have to form the same opinions as we do. We have a diverse audience and we really appreciate that. So again, it's totally free. Nothing's behind a paywall unless we link you to something else that has a paywall. Sometimes we do that. We try not to. So again, it's redacted.inc. All right. I just hit the desk. We'll see you here tomorrow. We'll be here, same time, same place. Thanks for joining us today, everybody.
Have a great night.